The iPhone XR is the best iPhone you can buy in 2018. It may not have the amazing screen of the iPhone XS Max, it may not have that secondary camera lens that makes the XS camera so versatile, but it packs many other features in a much more attractive $750 price tag. As a banana on top, you get this luscious color option along with 5 others, and that is something Apple hasn't done for a very long time. This is our iPhone XR review. It's hard not to talk about the color on the iPhone XR before anything else. This is the yellow color option, but there's also red, blue, black, white, and coral. Now, if you're going to get the iPhone XR, we don't think it makes much sense to get the black and white color option. Apple rarely makes colorful iPhones, and we think it's worthwhile to go and buy one of those when you have the chance. Our favorite is the yellow option. We just can't stop staring at it. This is glass here on the back, and overall it looks quite similar to the iPhone 8. Of course, the size is a little bigger, but we'll get to that in a minute. Over on the sides, you'll see Apple has changed the color a little bit. It's slightly more metallic, so there's a nice contrasting look between the brighter color on the back. And the rest of the button placements are all the same. If you're familiar with iPhones, you get the volume rocker on the left, power button on the right, and over here is the mute switch as well. And on the bottom, the stereo speakers, there's the bottom firing one and the top one over here. And then there's your lightning port. The screen is a 6.1-inch screen, and Apple's reasoning for this size was that it didn't want to go smaller than last year's iPhone X or iPhone XS, which is 5.8 inches, or it didn't want to go as big or bigger than the iPhone XS Max, which is 6.5 inches. So this sits right in between Apple's 2 flagship iPhones right now. And we think this is the best option for people who thought the iPhone XS is too small or the XS Max is too big. The XR has a 6.1-inch LCD screen with a 1792 by 828 resolution. Apple calls it the liquid retina display, and while the screen resolution may sound a little low, it looks sharp at the distance you typically hold your phone. Look closer and pixels will start to be visible. We think Apple could have added at least a 1080p screen or something higher, but it's difficult to find much else wrong with the screen. Black levels aren't as deep as the OLEDs you'll find on the XS and XS Max, but it gets close. Otherwise, the screen is colorful, and it easily gets bright enough to see outdoors. YouTube videos and movies on Netflix look good, again at a reasonable distance. If the screen is inches from your eyes, details won't look crystal clear, but that's probably not good for your eyes either. We think the screen will be sufficient for most people, but it's also one of the only shortcomings we've had with the XR. If you watch a lot of videos and movies on your phone, then perhaps it's worth considering the XS Max for the best screen experience on an iPhone. There's no home button here on the front of the phone, so Face ID with the True Depth camera is going to be the primary way you'll be unlocking the phone, and it works just as fast as on the iPhone XS. The stereo speakers on the iPhone XR get loud and they sound good, though the audio is not as dynamic or robust as the sound coming out of the speakers from the Razer Phone 2. You'll be satisfied listening to them if you're in a quiet room, but it may be a struggle outdoors if it's noisy. There's no headphone jack, and Apple has also decided not to include the 3.5mm headphone jack adapter in the box anymore. You can opt for the included Lightning earpods, which don't sound great, or shell out for wireless earbuds or headphones. The iPhone XR is powered by the same chipset inside its more expensive siblings, the A12 Bionic, though it comes with slightly less RAM, 3 gigs over 4 gigs. We've yet to see it run into performance issues. The processor makes iOS 12 fluid to operate. It had no problems swiftly swapping through multiple apps, and games like Alto's Odyssey ran without a hitch. We've taken a look at iOS 12 in our review video already, but it's important to note that the iPhone XR is the first time Apple is bringing several new features that debuted on the iPhone X last year to a lower price point. For example, you can create animojis or memojis in the iMessage app, and it works really well. It can track your face, and you can customize your character to your liking, and you can also choose between these animojis and send funny little messages to your contacts. There's no home button anymore, so you will need to get used to the gesture navigation system. Basically, you move up like this to get access to your recent apps, swipe down from here to get to the control center, and swipe down from the top to get to your notifications. You can swipe up from any app to go back to the home screen. The XR does not feature 3D touch, but Apple has replicated this with a feature called haptic touch. 3D touch on the iPhone XS allows you to utilize the pressure-sensitive display to press and hold down on certain parts of the user interface to reveal more actions. For example, pressing and holding down on an email notification will pull up the ability to mark it done. Haptic touch is much more limited. For example, you can't press on these notifications to act on them. Instead, it's limited in certain areas of the operating system. For example, you can press and hold here down on the control center to expand some of these tiles to get more detail. So that's essentially what haptic touch is. It looks and feels very similar to 3D touch, but it's not available in every part of the operating system, which you might be used to if you're coming from an iPhone 8 or an iPhone 7. The iPhone XR has the same exact main camera on the back of the iPhone XS, a 12 megapixel lens with an f1.8 aperture and optical image stabilization. It can shoot 4K 60 frames per second, can record stereo sound, packs in smart HDR, and for the first time you can use portrait mode without the need for a secondary lens. We've seen the improvements in the iPhone XS main camera over the iPhone X, and while they're not radical, groundbreaking changes, it's a much better camera overall, mostly thanks to smart HDR. Smart HDR helps with high contrast scenarios, minimizing blown out lights or skies and brightening up the foreground to make it visible. It works as advertised on the iPhone XR, producing some excellent photos in these extreme lighting conditions. The camera app has almost zero shutter lag, which helps capture detailed, well-exposed photographs that retain strong color. It holds its own in low light scenarios as well, though you need to make sure you stay quite still to prevent a blurry photo. We'd be lying if we didn't say we missed the versatility of the telephoto lens included in the iPhone XS and XS Max. The 2x optical zoom allows us to take shots that wouldn't look as good digitally zooming in on the iPhone XR. Going back to a single lens camera forces us to change the way we take photos, physically moving closer to the subject instead of standing at a distance. The lack of the secondary lens also affects portrait mode, which lets you take photos of a subject with a blurred effect behind them, mimicking a DSLR. We're quite happy portrait mode is available on the XR, as it's the first time Apple has introduced it on a single lens camera phone. It manages to do a great job outlining the subject and adding a strong blur behind them. And with depth control, you can adjust the intensity of the blur effect behind the subject after you snap a photo. Portrait lighting is also available, but you only get options of 3 as opposed to 5 on the XS. You get natural lighting, studio lighting, and contour lighting. Battery life on the iPhone XR won't give you anxiety. It's a 2942 mAh capacity, and we frequently ended a workday with around 50 or 45% remaining by 6:45 p.m. That's with taking it off the charger around 7 a.m. and using the phone for browsing the web, taking pictures, streaming music, and playing games. On lighter days of use, we hit 35% by 9:42 p.m. This phone will easily get you through a full day, and it may be able to stick around for a few hours of the following day if you forget to charge it. It supports fast charging, but the appropriate cable isn't included, sadly. You can also wirelessly charge this iPhone just like you can with the XS series and last year's iPhone devices. You don't need to spend $1,000 to get a good iPhone. That's why the XR exists. It brings a lot of those flagship features like the A12 Bionic processor, the same single lens camera, that edge-to-edge design, Face ID, all in a much more attractive $750 package. Now, of course, if that's still too much, there's the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 that Apple sells online, and they're excellent choices as well. On the Android side of things, we think the best alternative is the Google Pixel 3. We think it has a better camera, and it only costs $50 more. So that's the iPhone XR. We think it's the best iPhone you can buy at the moment. It costs $750 again, and it becomes available on October 26th.